Hey, welcome to the channel. It's Jack, the muscle and mobility maker with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, I'm going to be showing you how to fix that groin pain that you're having just inside the hip there. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. And it doesn't get better than that. So take advantage of it. Ready? Let's go ahead and dive into this one. All right, like I said, today we're gonna be showing you how to fix that groin pain, inner hip pain there that you're getting. Maybe it's during squatting, walking, anything where the leg is getting pulled into some flexion and it's during that movement specifically. Maybe you step a certain way, you're noticing it then. That's what we're talking about right now. So it's during movement, specifically in cases of hip flexion oftentimes, or even portions of little bits of flexion at the hip, that you are noticing this pain at the groin and that inner side of the hip there. So we're gonna do a little bit of a mobility-based approach here, addressing the hip joint itself and the pelvis first. Then we're gonna go into some self-myofascial release work that you can do. And from there, looking at some restabilizing and strengthening work that you can do to rebuild and save that new range of motion that you have in those tissues. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, the first thing we're going to address is your psoas and adductors through the position of your pelvis. So we want a band anchored just above hip height on a post. We're going to place it around the glutes like a climbing harness, and then we're going to be practicing pelvic tilts from a split stance. So we really want to extend that stance as far as you can back, nice deep stance there. Actively go into an anterior pelvic tilt and then go into a posterior pelvic tilt. From there, you're going to feel a big stretch at the front of the hip. Once we have that stretch, we also want to add some lunges, taking it through full range of motion, focusing on keeping the glutes contracted through that full range. Next, we're going to place a band around the back, anchor it on the hands so that it's on the lumbar spine. And again, we're focusing on the pelvic tilt here, but a little bit more adductor focused in this one. We want our feet opened wide here, so our knees are at about 90 degrees in each position. And I'm going to go into an anterior pelvic tilt and sit back deeper into the position. So I'm arching my back and sitting back deeper, feeling a big stretch at the front of the hips. And then I'm going to posterior pelvic tilt and actually extend forward as I do that posterior pelvic tilt. So it might be a subtle movement at first. There might not be a lot of movement in the beginning, but practice that anterior pelvic tilt. Things might be a little bit tight at first. Take it slow, breathe, and focus on those two different positions. Pushing your back into the band as you posterior pelvic tilt, focusing on the glute extension, and then allowing the band to actually take you into a lumbar extension and sitting back, stretching that inner thigh and really working those tissues on the inside of the hips there. Here I'm showing a slightly different variety to get to that same position on the hip here. You're going to anchor your band up high on a post, so it's a little bit of a vertical pull. A pull-up bar works better, or a squat rack if you can hang it from the bar on the squat rack. That works better because you get a more direct pull. I don't have that option, so I'm using my post and trying to put it high so it's pulling my hip upward. Then I'm placing a 45-pound plate there. I have my feet together, bottoms of the feet together in this, so a diamond position from my legs, and I'm letting the weight take my pinned leg down to the floor and holding it there, and then I'm trying to open up the free leg as much as possible. My goal is to get my whole pelvis to the floor, making sure that I'm not shifting over to the loaded side there with that band pulling. Each of these banded exercises, we're also addressing the hip capsule specifically, so we're making sure that the capsule is in a good position and that we're actually making sure that it's not shortening up on that anterior portion, causing our pain specifically. So this can be an intense process. Use your breath, nasal diaphragmatic breathing, trying to activate your parasympathetic nervous system as much as possible in these positions if they are highly uncomfortable for you. If they are actually painful, do not progress to those positions just yet, and adapt the band or adapt the exercise and work from there. Now that we've addressed the pelvis and hip specifically, we're going to do some self-myofascial release. So I'm using a softball right where the obliques and the abdomen meet, below my rib cage and between my pelvis and rib cage there. So I'm going to lie down and extend that side fully as much as I can, reaching the leg and the arm, and allow that ball to just settle in as deep as possible to those tissues. Now our psoas connects to our lumbar spine. That's important to understand. That's why pelvic tilt is important, but it also connects in to the front of that hip there. So we're going to search that line vertically, testing out different ranges and seeing if there's tender points to the pressure of the tissues on that ball there. What I want to do is, again, focus on nasal diaphragmatic breathing. If I find some tenderness or anything that's sending any type of sensation down into my groin, that is likely the psoas muscle that you're feeling giving you that sensation. So we can curl that leg back first of all, and then extend the hip, focusing on the glute contracting and lifting the thigh from the floor. Now try different areas again between the ribs and the pelvis here, searching that line right where the abdomen and oblique meet, and just taking your time to settle in and allow yourself to relax around the pressure of that ball. Next, I'm using a band called Voodoo Floss here, or Mobility Floss, and you can see it on my right hip at this point, just barely behind my arm there. So that is a wrap you can use. You don't have to use it on this one, but it's going to provide self-myofascial release and also increase blood flow to the area. So it is very helpful to have. It's like 25 bucks if you want to get your hands on some mobility floss. Otherwise, you could do this hip shift by itself with the load, and it's also going to be beneficial to that area. So what we want to do is make sure that we have the legs in line with one another, one hip opening up as far as possible, the foot pointing away from the knee on that side, and then we're using the load to shift into that side as much as possible. My other leg is bent, my toes are underneath me, and I'm shifting, so I get a shift into those adductors, a bit of a stretch there, as well as that hip external rotation. I want to keep that knee that's up in line with the small toes. All right, similar to our last one, we're getting a little bit of stretch plus strength. I don't have the band on here, just to clarify, but I am using 2 kettlebells to load up my adductors. What I want to do is actively flex against that load while I'm also pushing down on those kettlebells. So I'm not letting my legs actually close. They probably could if I were to just allow them to. But I'm going to resist myself with the load of the kettlebells and my own arm pressure downward, and I'm going to flex the adductors upward into the bells for 5 to 10 seconds. After that flex, I'm going to release and go into a passive stretch for about 10 seconds. So we want to see that the leg is getting closer and closer to the floor with each rep. Take your time here, at least 2 minutes, playing with the reps, which really doesn't matter how many reps. It's more about the range of motion you gain as you're flexing up against those weights. After you release, letting them take you deeper and deeper into the stretch, eventually hoping that we get all the way to that floor there, and really making sure we have the full range of motion that we should through those adductors. And lastly, we want to take a moment to re-stabilize, which we've done a little bit of stretch plus strength in the last couple, but this one is specifically more about the strengthening itself. So I have a band on both feet, and this is called the psoas march. So I'm pushing one leg out as I pull the knee high toward my chest on the opposite side. The leg that's extending, I want to focus on getting the glutes engaged, the quads engaged, so I'm getting a full extension there. I want to make sure that I'm conscious of my pelvic position again, so I want to make sure that I'm not arching my lumbar spine as I do this. It can help to posteriorly pelvic tilt or pull your low back into the floor as you're holding it, and think of keeping the shoulder blades pulled down into the floor as well. I like to think of this as drawing a bow and arrow with my foot. So one is pulling the string back as I push away with the other one. All right, and there you have it. A simple mobility-based approach to help you fully resolve that groin inner hip pain. If you like this video, make sure you let me know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend if they've been gimping around a little bit, limping when they're walking. Maybe it's when they go into a squat, they get that pain during some flexion. Pass it their way, share the love. If you're somebody who's been experiencing this pain for a while now and you need help fully resolving this issue, or you have other training aches or injuries that are holding you back from training the way that you want to at the full intensity that you want to, what I want you to do right now is drop down below in the description to fill out a coaching application and schedule your mobility blueprint call. This is an opportunity for you and I to get on a Zoom call together so I can visually assess your movement limitations and mobility limitations that are at the root of your problem, and to fully develop a tailored program specifically to your needs. Once we have that program developed, I can explain clearly how that's going to work to you and answer any questions you have about that program and lay it all out for you in full detail. And from there, we'll get you moving in the right direction. Last but not least, if you have not already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine, and it does not get better than that. So take advantage of it. Welcome to the Stronghold Army. See you next week.